Dr. Janell Gibson, the Provost and Chief Academic Officer at Columbia Southern University. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you for having me.
So, we're going to cover a lot on today's podcast, and I always like to start with your personal journey. And so, I'd love to learn about the mentors that helped shape your personal and professional path.
Absolutely. There were so many, Brad, that made such a difference in the path. I came up a very traditional path of adjunct teaching, psychology is my discipline, full-time teaching, program director, dean, vice provost, provost. So it was a very typical higher education path. But what really was instrumental for me is I had the opportunity to teach both adult learners and also online at a time when online was just kicking off. So my personal challenge became bridging the gap, one, between face to face and online learning, and two, the importance of adult learners and the importance of the amount that they juggled. So my mentors were those in positions higher than I was that taught me how to handle the situations, taught me the flexibility, taught me how to navigate within the rules of higher education and accrediting bodies.
So let's talk a little bit about the differences between the traditional age student and that, adult learner, 23 plus years old, and just their journeys. How are those journeys different? And I know we could spend a whole segment on that question alone, but maybe just kind of the tip of the iceberg. What does that look like?
Right? The amount you juggle, the amount you juggle, you just think about it. Whether or not you have families, children's, other jobs, you think about that alone is like having two full-time jobs. If you have a full-time job and you have family and there's demands and you may have young children, right? And they're sick. Or one of the things that really resonated with me is I had a mom who showed up late for a test in class, but her children literally forgot lunch that day. And she had to make a choice at that moment. Do my young children, not have lunch or have the embarrassment or have to borrow on the school lunch, or do I bring them lunch? And right, a decision like that might seem trivial in the world and the landscape of what we're dealing with, but it's not when it's your family, your child, their issues. And so adult learners juggle all of that and they have so much conflict that they're all trying to handle at the same time. And they're usually in school, Brad, for a reason. Okay. Very few have I met that just want to go back to school because they just enjoy learning. They're needing a promotion. They're needing an additional qualification. Maybe they're making a career change. So these are life decisions coming at a time when they're at their busiest.
Well, absolutely. Let's talk a little bit about Columbia Southern.
Hmm.
It's a volatile enrollment environment. But I think to your point, there's a number of challenges that you see on the traditional side. And again, keep me honest here, but as far as, the enrollment cliff and the projected, downturn in the high school population, or, the value of a degree and the value of education is being
Right.
challenged, probably more so than ever. How often do you deal with that? And then how does Columbia Southern kind of, in a way, maybe separate itself from those challenges because you're supporting adult learners?
We do. So it's a part of our daily conversations and our senior executive team. But Columbia Southern University was founded primarily as an adult learner institution in the occupational safety and health industry. And then it expanded strongly to first responders and emergency management. So we have a lot of police officers. We're very strong in fire, right? That we close to 7,000 students in our fire programs, associates all the way up to doctorate. The same with our safety programs. So it's foundationally built programs that are very heavy in the work sector And these programs are still requiring degrees to advance and to get jobs and minimum requirements. So I, as well as many of my higher ed colleagues, have kept an eye on this. We hear the chatter about are there going to be values in degrees, but yet I have not seen lots of jobs out there listed that have removed requirements for degrees. So it's a really interesting landscape to watch. You still see thousands and thousands minimum bachelor's degrees for higher level skill master's degrees. So Brad, I don't know, right? The micro credential thing came around 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Everybody talked about the certs and that's all you need. And and it kind of fizzled out. And then the talk comes back again. So what I believe in is a blended model, right? You want a model that will meet all of that. If there are just certificates or certs required for particular fields and careers, you want to offer those. But then you also want the ability to build that into a degree if students are going to pursue that. So I think it's about knowing your population, knowing our learners, and being able to meet the demands of our learners and the demands of the job market.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. And then, and when you look at an adult learner, um, how how does Columbia Southern, how do you identify those learners and bring them back? Because I would imagine, just being an adult learner myself, there's probably some nerves around that. Can I do this? Gosh, I have not either, been in a classroom or online in a long time, and maybe never online. So how do you kind of ease those concerns?
We have very strong student support departments. We have a very strong academic advising department, a very strong student support department, very strong online technical departments if your issue is just technology, 24/7 like library support. Because when do adult learners do their work? It's not generally from 8 to 5, right? And you're sitting online at 11 p.m. and you need something done. If it's 11 p.m. Friday night, adult learners don't want to wait till 8 a.m. Monday morning for an answer or help. They want it at 11:01 p.m. Friday night. So we have had to structure our service departments very robustly to be able to meet the needs of our adult learners. Some use of AI, some use of bots, and with a really strong human element to reach out and make that connection. You're right. What adult wants to go back and take calculus? Like no one, everybody. There's certain courses. Nobody wants English composition. Nobody wants calculus. Nobody wants statistics. They're
Well,
scary.
and so let's take a look at your credentials just for a minute. So I'm
Sure.
curious, maybe even start with your PhD, kind of more of a personal question. So conflict analysis and resolution. So what got
Yes.
you into that?
What got me into that? Kind of a really cool story. I taught a junior kindergarten for several years, and I had a gentleman in the FBI whose son was in my class, and he was one of the first people to run the FBI's behavior analysis unit, the BAU, like the show Criminal Minds came after. And that was the degree program he was in. And since my master's is psychology, and this is probably human behavior at the social psychology and ultimate level, understanding conflict, understanding how to resolve it. It's every hostage negotiation, all of it.
Yeah,
I think that's really fascinating. I'm fascinated by human behavior and
yeah,
what
yeah.
motivates individuals to act and work and how you do it in a really amenable, amiable way, right?
Oh,
I
absolutely.
think we can all come up with really good solutions if we'll listen and work together toward a common goal.
Well, I can imagine that has to be such a strength to your point, in a working environment, right? Such a great strength as a leader, but then also I'd imagine even being able to empathize with an adult learner and helping them
Yes.
find that pathway to a degree.
Yes. And understanding, right? It's, when you were asking me about mentors, I had a mentor really early on. She was a vice president of one of the universities I was at. And she said to me, you have to choose your role, like as an educator. Are you going to be an authoritarian? This paper is due Thursday night at, 7 p.m. And if you don't have it, that's it. You get a zero. And that's an authoritarian role. And a lot of academics feel strongly about that. They are more interested in teaching time management, responsibility than they are necessarily about the content. With an adult learner, I adopted a philosophy of I don't need to teach a mom, single mom of three children holding two jobs about time management. That's
Right.
not the role I chose. My role instead is how can I help this mom learn? I'm teaching deviant behavior, critical thinking, abnormal psychology. I wanted to learn the content. And that might mean that I have to have some flexibility with that due date. And how you do that, right? You can't just say anything goes, do whatever you want, but there needs to be support mechanisms in place that you're right, empathize, understand, and work with your students to be successful.
Mhm.
So, yes, you balance those and juggle those and choose. And that became my role. I'd rather be the educator of the subject matter than the rule enforcer
Sure.
that's trying
Yeah.
to teach
Yeah.
them, you know. I might have a different philosophy if I were on a big university campus with 18-year-olds,
Sure. Right. Right. Yeah.
different approach.
So let's talk about something that comes up quite often, I think for students in general,
Hmm.
affordability.
Absolutely.
And so how does Columbia Southern approach education affordability and also minimizing student debt?
So we take pride on one of our deepest values. Our founding family, the Mays and Cooley families, made their value was that education would be affordable, flexible, and accredited. We are one of the most affordable. Our undergrad, 275 a credit hour. This past year, 65% of our students in 2025 graduated with zero debt, zero financial aid debt. So you make it very affordable. We're very, very sparing if we ever increase tuition. We also include books. They don't have an additional book cost on top of it like many do. Um, Students, we do have about 38% military. Some of those are able to utilize funding like tuition assistance, or some may be veterans going back on a GI Bill. But the students, we work really hard to ensure that it's affordable. Actually have a cost calculator right on our website where they can put in and compare most any university that they choose right off of those university websites for cost. So it is definitely and especially important. Who knew, right? Who knew 30 years ago when they started with this philosophy and so many schools were really high priced that
Sure.
this would be the thing that holds with the longevity is being affordable.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I imagine too, and you can expand on this a lot better than I could, but I would imagine too that you all could be, Columbia Southern could become the hero in a way for students and families, especially, adult learners that maybe, life got in the way previously. And so maybe they had some credits, but they had to stop out or they had to leave
Yeah.
without really knowing. And so, can you speak to that? Because I can imagine, boy, that just the pride in the institution and obviously personally in being able to come back and go, gosh, I got my degree and I'm debt free and I have a career and and so on and so forth.
That's huge. Many of us, and you'll even hear my voice shake. Our senior executive team, when we're reporting this, we report all of these statistics to our board of trustees. And when we report at the end of the year, when all of the things come in, and we report that debt free, that's huge. I mean, that's huge. The percent that graduate debt free, right? That's all of us in education. You have a mission. You really are not in this field because you want to get rich quick. You're really in this field because you have a heart with changing lives and you believe in education. So that is hugely important to us with our legacy values. We work really hard. We increased our retention, our persistence, term to term enrollment hit an all time high for us of 87%. Our
Wow.
retention jumped up to 75, which it's the traditional iPads retention of the snapshot you take once a year in the fall, which we do. So when you watch those metrics, I think you can really tell the difference in a team that supports the mission and values of the university.
Yeah. So who do you consider to be competitors?
Well, so it's kind of funny. I look at some of the biggies like Southern New Hampshire, Western Governors, because I've always admired their competency based model and what they're able to do with that. We look at Grand Canyon University, Liberty University. They are all larger than I am. And so I definitely keep my eye on that. American Military University, because they have a strong hold in the military community, and that's very dear to us. We just launched about a year ago. Well, it might even be 2 years ago now, our College of Space Intelligence and Military Operations. So it's very cool. We were advised heavily by Spacecom and are one of only two universities that signed an articulation with Starcom. Very cool stuff. My dean is known as Diamond One. He was a number two guy in the Air Force, and when he retired, he came on to be my dean Dr. Mike Perry. And then our strategic advisor to the president is uh, Chief Master Sergeant retired Joanne Bass, the first woman to command any of our armed forces, and she commanded the Air Force. So they have advised us very, very strongly on, again, those programs that are needed, those
Yeah.
programs that are needed for our military that are transitioning out, and in conjunction with programs that working adults in general need to move up.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, key differentiators.
Yes,
Wow.
yes,
Key
yes.
differentiators. Yeah.
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 And we have some really phenomenal board members that have had what previous positions, retired generals, retired admiral, that help guide us in those types of practices, executives from Meta, like different individuals that are all doing this. They're all donating their time to help advance higher education.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. Yeah. With that type of experience on the military side, on the professional side, and I mean, it really sets you all apart, truly.
It does. It does. We feel it does.
So where do you see Columbia Southern in 10 years?
Well, I see us. So we've got about an active student population of 30,000. I definitely want to be at 60, right? I'm definitely wanting to double it,
No.
but we want to expand. In the past 5 years, we went from three colleges to six.
Okay.
So we doubled over. We've launched a College of Nursing and Health Sciences. We have, again, the one I told you, College of Space Intelligence, Military Operations, College of Education are the three new ones we've launched. And we have several research teams. I have professional companies, internal companies, all doing, competitive market analysis on what's the next. And it's really cool. I'm working with a whole group of students graduating from the University of Florida who are doing their capstone project. I want to know what are the jobs going to be 10 years from now.
Yeah.
So, right, I want the crystal ball of, and none of us know the answer, but I want to ensure that I'm thinking of those programs that are going to result in jobs for people 10 years from now. Of course, AI came in like a wave, man. I started pretty big AI committees about 2 years ago to take a look at the policy, the approach, how we were going to handle this. Um, that's spinning our industry upside down. So
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. And what's the average age of a student?
at Columbia Southern, 38.
38. Okay. Okay. Yeah. And one of the reasons I asked that is because and I would imagine the take on AI versus someone who might be 16, probably completely different.
It is. It is. And we've chosen, under the direction of our president, he is a brilliant software engineer. So he embraces AI, and we feel responsible to teach our students, staff, and faculty how to use it and how to use it with ethics and integrity. And let us show and teach you how this can enhance what you're doing, but not substitute, right? Not use it to plagiarize, not use it, instead of your work. For gosh, cite it, cite it if you use it. And yeah, it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to
Yeah.
watch the landscape.
Well, excellent. Well, we're excited to keep an eye on Columbia Southern here over the next 10 years and well beyond. So, Dr. Janell Gibson, thank you so much for your time. We
Thank
really
you.
appreciate it.